Hello, everyone. We are live and recording. Yay! A very happy Monday to everyone. Now, I am excited because tonight we have Sarina Dahlan and Ruth Mitchell with Mysterious Galaxy, and they are bringing you two books. Sarina's book, Reset, and Ruth's book, Deleted. And both of these books talk about memories and how you can lose your memories, have your memories really more like stolen or wiped out or taken from you. But they discuss it in very, very different ways and discuss just how our memories and love and all of these things affect us. But how essentially, I think a common thread, though, is that even if you want a memory taken away, sometimes it's always not the best to have those memories taken away. And even if they're embarrassing, it is good to keep those memories. And just to give you a little bit about our authors, Sarina, they're both local. So we have two local San Diegan authors, which is amazing.
Yay.
But Sarina was born into an Indonesian family in Thailand, and she immigrated to the U.S. at the age of 12. While children in the West grow up on fairy tales, she learned parables through ghost stories, mythologies, and Japanese manga, which just is all the things that make my heart so happy. And a graduate of University of California, San Diego, with degrees in psychology and visual arts. She has blended both disciplines in careers as an advertising producer, a corporate marketing strategist, and an award-winning writer. Ruth is the author of Deleted, a YA tech thriller that is set in San Diego. Both of these books set in San Diego. Well,
hers is close.
Mine's in California. Close, yeah.
Close, but it's kind of its own cool world. You guys will learn more as they discuss. But in the near future, and Ruth is a former reporter, as I said, who lives here. And in addition to writing, she loves to talk about books on Instagram, bake and run slowly, which is better than me because I'm not running at all. So I have respect for anyone who just runs in general. And before I pass it to our two authors, just some house rules for everyone. If you look to the right-hand side, all of you are shouting out and saying hello. So hello back to everyone. Thank you for all the love in the comments. Keep it coming, but I will ask if you do have any questions for our authors. If you look down below where it says ask a question, as that would imply indeed that is where you can ask a question. If you click that button, you can submit, and I highly recommend you ask questions. The best part about events is getting to kind of poke at the author's brain and ask them, where did this idea come from? How did, just explain where this fascinating thing did. So make sure that you ask questions down below. And also, if you'd like to purchase these books, I'm so excited. I was talking to them, and this is the first time we're authoring signed and personalized, not book plates, but physical books from both authors for the event. When was the last time I got to say that to you guys? So if you would like
crazy,
to support,
right?
it's kind of insane. If you want to support your local bookstore and also two amazing local authors, there will be the purchase book button down below. Now I'm going to stop rambling because you are here for these authors. Now I'm going to pass it off to them, and I will see you guys at the end of the event. Have a great conversation, guys.
We will. Thank you, Constance. Okay. Well,
hi.
I'm going to ask the first question because you have the answer, Sarina, and that is how we met.
So, funny story. When I was trying to kind of gather all the blurbs from authors in the process of producing my book, I wanted someone from San Diego because I felt that that's important. I'm a San Diegan. I've been for a very long time, and that's really important to me. So I did some research, as I do most things, and Ruth's name came up as an award-winning author of her book Deleted. And I read the description of her book, and I was like, she's sci-fi, I'm sci-fi. Both of her books are kind of dealing with memories, memory erasure. Let me just reach out to her and see if she'd be willing to read my book and provide a blurb. And I contacted her through Instagram, and she replied. Most people probably won't. I don't always reply. Depends on how weird you are. But yeah, she did reply, and she read my book, and she provided a wonderful blurb. So thank you so much, Ruth.
Yeah, it was kind of surreal reading your book because they aren't the same, but they have, I mean, there's these moments, these lines where I could almost like hear the Twilight Zone music because it was kind of eerie how much there's
Right.
some similarities. We both have like AI that is in the main character's ear, and your AI is named Lucy, which is my main character's name.
And your main character is named Lucy. And when I read your book, I was like, Lucy.
I am Lucy. Yeah. Many times in the book, I'm like, whoa, somebody, it's like, I once heard someone say that stories are kind of like in a river and authors just catch them, you know? And I felt like, oh, this story was in the air and we both caught it. A slightly different version, but they're similar.
Yeah, yeah. And it's so funny because I began this book in 2017. And I'm not sure when you began writing yours. And it's like, yeah, so it's like it's so weird. That's like, you know, like things are just kind of flying in the air, and hopefully you catch some that can become a book.
Yeah.
So I love that idea. I love the idea of like finding magic and the idea of books and how they come to be.
Yeah. So we're gonna give kind of the elevator pitch for each other's books.
Yeah.
And so I'll give the one first. What?
The reasons? Because I just want usually we like authors give our own elevator pitch, but I was like, I can't do this. So I'd rather do Ruth's, and so she's gonna do mine.
Yeah, I was gonna do yours first. So Sarina's book is, I just love this about it. We're gonna talk more about it, but it's a utopian book. And it's set in the future, and there's these 4 cities, and it's based off of John Lennon's song "Imagine," and everything is perfect. And I actually, you know, a lot of dystopian. I'm getting ahead of myself, but I'm still going to say it. A lot of dystopian books are supposedly utopias, but as a reader, you quickly find out what's wrong with them. But I feel like in this civilization, there's a lot of things to admire. There's a lot of great things, and and I'm like, I'm treating your book like my own. I'm just going on and on about it. I have lots of but the main catch to this is that every 4 years, people's memories are erased. So you don't keep relationships. They're all erased every 4 years. And that's the premise of this book. And there are a couple characters, well, one in particular who wants to remember, who he remembers his love, and he wants to find her. Is that good? You can add stuff.
That's so nice. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. So my turn. So I read Ruth's book, and I had so much fun reading it. It's a young adult sci-fi set in San Diego, kind of in the vicinity of UCSD, where I went to school. And so I was attracted to it from the start. And there are moments in it where it's kind of like, that can totally be my life, you know, just sitting on the grass lawn and just studying or hanging out with friends. So it follows this young college student named Lucy, who's a technophobe. It's set in the near future, and everyone wears these like specs, which is this digital eyeglasses. And somehow she stumbled upon information about how to mind hack through these glasses. But when that knowledge proved threatening to a powerful mind hacker, she is forced to go on a run to preserve her memories. So it's a fun, fast read, and I really enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you. And you were talking about my book. I'm thinking about the things I forgot to mention about your book. It's set in the desert near San Diego, but not in San Diego, but it's also set in the future. And it's not all desert because there's these beautiful cities built there. And it is not YA, though many people who'd enjoy YA would enjoy it. It's a little more contemplative, I'd say, than my book. Though there's still some contemplation in mine. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think when it comes to, you know, speculative world, the what ifs, you can go in like you can really it really stirs your mind about what would you do, you know, in when you're in this situation in this kind of world. And I think both of our books do that. Mine, you know, I hope that it will ask the readers as they read, you know, like what kind of life would you have? Would you want this world, as you mentioned, Ruth, that it is a utopia? I purposely made it into a utopia because I don't think there's enough utopias out there. And I wanted this very gray world that we can kind of root for. I want the readers to go in and find something to love in this utopia. And as they, you know, get to know the characters and what they have to trade for the life in this utopia, which is their memory, to kind of, you know, ask questions about what they would do themselves if they were in those shoes.
Yeah, perfect. Next question we're going to talk about is what the similarities of our books. And Constance mentioned a little bit. They both deal with memory.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
And the question of like, what is the kind of, how much do you want to hold on to your memories? And they both explore the idea of, and in fact, it's on your book. Do you want to read what the thing on your book is? It says, it's like, can you love someone you don't remember?
Oh, yeah. The tag was, can you love someone you don't remember? Because I felt that, you know, when it comes to memory erasure, no one really wants it. But we go with it in some ways or another, you know, from losing your keys to dementia or Alzheimer's. And what all of these have in common, or not the losing key part, but what this have in common is that the worst thing you could lose are the people you love. And so the question of can you love someone you don't remember pretty much came up right away when I was writing this story, because I think that's the worst thing. And that's how I knew that it had to be a love story. It had to be this intimate moment, you know, between characters who are trying to hold on to what they had or what they remember that they had. And, you know, I want to kind of connect to the universality of that sense of love, loss, and longing that we've each had in our lives, even though we don't live in this speculative world.
Yeah, exactly. And when I saw that in your book, I'm like, that could be on my book. That's kind of the central question of my book as well.
Mm-hmm.
Is, you know, can you love someone you don't remember? Because both, we have that very much in common. We also, and I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but we both also looked into the future and had to kind of imagine the future.
Right.
And I wanted to ask you a little bit about that process for you.
So for me, the looking into the future is kind of, you know, I made this world into, it's in the, I'm sure that's about 200 years from now. However, the technology, for the most part, similar to the technology that we have today, because if you don't get to keep your memories and people don't get to build upon their knowledge year over year, the idea of technology progressing at the speed that we have today is not going to be there. And so
that's a good point. I didn't realize that about your book. I didn't think about that. That's cool.
Because I was kind of like trying to really ground it in reality, even though it is sci-fi, even though it's speculative. I wanted to kind of ground it into, you know, the reality of today and how within the past few years our technology has progressed so fast, and a lot of it has to do with the idea that, you know, one idea is built upon another, and now we have these technologies that we can't hardly ever contain, you know, even contain ourselves, which also your book, you know, deals with, is how do we address technology when it kind of gets ahead of humanity, and what's the price, you know, that we have to pay for giving up a privacy or a choice or memories. So
yeah. Well, that's interesting. So my book is 20 years into the future. And, but you're right, the tech is pretty similar in the two of them. And I didn't make that connection that it's because people don't keep their memories. And when I was trying to imagine what the world would be like 20 years in the future, when I first started writing my book almost 10 years ago, I hadn't heard of smart glasses. When my book came out, the week my book came out in 2020, Amazon started selling smart glasses to a selected group. Now they sell them to everyone.
Isn't that wild?
It scares me a little bit. And also there are some things I kind of made guesses on my book. And then I would have people who worked white hackers, and I'd ask them questions and they'd be like, oh yeah, for sure. And it kind of scared me how many of the things that I kind of predicted in my book are almost there. One difference. One difference is specs in my book are thought activated. And right now the new smart glasses are voice activated. But that's not too different.
The thought activation, that's kind of freaky, right? But in a way, we are letting technology go inside our mind when we do, when we shop at Amazon, for example, all of our data is collected and, our future actions are predicted. And in Reset that I also explored the idea of tests that you would take in order to predict what your preferences are, down to, who you'd like to date, which we have today, who's going to be most compatible to you based on all of these data that you give freely, and so, and that's what I really like about futuristic books. Because I've always been like a fan of sci-fi. I grew up on this manga called Doraemon, which explores futurist world and all of these technology. And, all of them are always kind of talking about trading something for another. Nothing is free. And today we are giving our data away so freely that almost the idea of choice is going to become almost an illusion. We think we have choice, but do we really? And and I think both of our books also explore that about the idea of choice. Do we really have the choice? So
I was agreeing that that's definitely an issue in your book and mine is what do we trade for our technology? And we both have people trying to hide in these cities with eyes everywhere. So the next thing we're going to talk about is how did you come up with the idea for this book?
So I've said this story so many times in so many interviews, and it's the same, story. And I love telling it because it really, I think as a writer, we get so frustrated with the writing process. It takes forever. And sometimes you put so much work into it and it doesn't work out. So I think it was about May or April of 2017. I have been writing this book for months, and I don't remember if it was 50,000 or 70,000 words. I was almost done. And then I just realized it's terrible. I can't tell this story. I cannot continue to tell this story. And I was getting mad at myself for wasting all this time. And I really wanted to be a writer. And I'm like, you have no future in this. I deleted everything. And this was like 3:00 in the morning. And I was frustrated. I was upset. But as I was staring at the blank screen, an idea came to me, and it was really more a question. And the question was, what if we can erase our memories the same way we erase documents, Wow. And
I have not heard you tell this story, but this is so my starting point. I'm like, ooh, getting shivers. Like, that's so weird.
So weird. It's the magic of a book. It's like 3:00 in the morning, the muse decide to be like, okay, I've tortured you enough. Here you go, an idea. And one question led to another. What kind of world would we have if our memories are erased? what life would we have? Why would it be necessary? And the why is really important. And then eventually all of those questions led to the one question that haunted me the entire time I was writing, which is, can you love someone you don't remember? So that's my story. How about yours?
It's similar and not, but like when you said that about the blank screen, I just was like, whoa, deja vu. Because for me, I was a writer. Like I mentioned before, I was a journalist, and I think it started at the time as a journalist. And you know, as a writer, you edit your stories and you change them. And I also do, like my character does, kind of my book starts off with her doing something really embarrassing and wants to have it erased from the memory of this boy she has a crush on. And I am one of those people who often at night, my head's on my pillow and I'm like, I cannot believe I said that. I might say something tonight and I'll be like, I can't believe I said that. And so sometime I was editing and I just had this, what if we could edit our life? What if we could, so that's why this document is similar. You deleted it, which is great. You deleted it and you got reset. And I had this what if we could edit my life? And I had that idea for years and I didn't know how to write about it. And then one day I just had the thought of these thought activated glasses and people having the technology to get into each other's brains and change their thoughts. So that's where I came up with it. But it's a similar line. I think the writing process got us to the same place.
Right. And that's why, like, I always tell new writers, it's like, don't feel bad if whatever you're writing doesn't work out. Delete it if it doesn't work, or stick to it. There's no right or wrong way to approach this. And ultimately, if it's a good enough story and you really truly want to tell it, you'll find a way to tell it. So
okay, great. So I think a lot of people might classify both of our books as dystopian. But we both argued that they're not quite.
I had such a hard time trying to first query the book, because the process in trying to get a traditional publisher is first you try to get an agent. So I had to query a bunch of agents. And I was having a hard time trying to categorize it, because the book business is a certain way, and it's a certain way for a reason. And they want to be able to understand, like shorthand wise, where in what shelf can they put your book? Which author are you like, and once, I when I first began querying, I called my story a love story set in a speculative futuristic world. There's no shelf for that. So
wait a minute, that's what I wrote.
And we ended with sci-fi, and I'm not sure, whether or not it's I don't know. I mean, and that's the thing, ultimately, though, I hope it finds its readers somehow. And yeah, to me, I always kind of say it's more love story that just happens to be set in this what if world.
Yeah. Well, one thing I do, as I said this before, I'm going to say it again, it really is more utopian than dystopian. The four cities are, and that's another similarity between our books, is they're sci-fi, but they are very grounded in this world. And the four cities are cities that you're going to enjoy imagining, but really recognize. And I, my book is San Diego 20 years in the future, and it's pretty easy to recognize too.
I love that word, because I can relate to that world, Yeah. But it's funny that you're kind of the dystopian utopian thing. One of the interviewers that I was talking to said that her sister was visiting her, and when she first got my book, and the sister saw my book sitting on a pile of the to be read list, and she just took it and read it, and they both read it at the same time, and one decided that it's a dystopian. And another one says it's a utopia, and they were arguing about it. I was like, I love it. I love the fact that you can't quite categorize what it is, and it's going to be different depending upon how you view this world and what you like about it and what you don't like about it.
Yeah, that's great. I love it. And my book, though some reviewers call it dystopian, and maybe this is being too picky or splitting hairs, but I'd call it pre-dystopian. It's right before everything falls apart. It's very much our world. There's some problems, with people having their memories erased. That's dangerous, but we're not quite there yet. So,
yeah, but how close it is makes it so scary.
True.
Where we know.
Yeah. Which character in your book do you most relate to?
Probably a little bit of everybody.
Yes, I
the
agree.
main character, Eris, and I have a lot in common in that she's logical, as as I am, and but I can also relate to Metis, her love interest's tenacity and his conviction in his belief, and I can also relate to Benja, which is Eris's friend's, his kind of passion and the way he just kind of go for it. I'm not that way with everything, but I am with writing, obviously. But sometimes, though, when the world is a bit too much for me, I can definitely relate to the planner who who made a decision to erase people's memories to preserve peace, because sometimes you just wish for that shortcut. I'm not there. I'm not quite there yet. Whereas I feel like the planner doesn't quite have faith anymore in humanity. I do. It's just some days, you just kind of want to hide in that world.
Yeah. In my book, and that's so funny you say that, because somebody was just talking to me and they're like, I read the beginning of your book, and the first chapter of my book is actually from the bad guy's point of view. And there's some pretty jaded talk about memories and how they're useless. Because none of our memories are real, really. And he said, is that your point of view? I said, well, it's from it's from Nick's point of view. And he says, yeah, but is it really your point of view? And I said, well, I'm all my characters,
Right? Yeah.
I don't completely agree with him, but Nick has a point. We do forget a lot of our day. So, that what he said is we forget a lot. So what's the big deal with erasing memories? So.
And that's what I like about your bad guy. Your bad guy is not bad, really. He straddles this gray line, and I like that. I like when people, especially the characters who we like to put in the bad guy box. It's not about no one thinks of themselves as bad ever. Even the worst person in the world, there's always a reason. And but in Nick's case, and also in the planner's case, they both have a point. And I guess it's just trying to kind of get those points across. And it would kind of, to some people, it's going to make a lot of sense, and to some people, it's like, oh, it's wacky. So. But I really like that about your characters, that there's no bad guy in this book.
I'm laughing because we had early on, one of our first questions is discuss the similarity of our books, and it feels like every question we're like, oh yeah, and I didn't even I'm clicking, yeah, that's right, because there's a lot of gray in both books.
And that's what I love about speculative fiction. It's all this what ifs. It's all these kind of like imagination. Is you can just kind of take your thoughts down so many different paths.
Yeah, it's great. I'm wondering, I think I'm going to turn a light on in here because it's getting very dark in here. So I'm going to turn on the light, but while I go turn on the light, can you answer the hardest part of writing your book?
I'll juggle. The hardest part about writing my book was finishing it. And I see that there's my writer friend Daniel is on. Hi, Daniel. Finishing a book is so hard for a writer because writing is a conversation, a writer has with themselves. And you can talk yourself in and out every single decision. And sometimes you take yourself down one road and the other side of your brain's going, that's not the right place. And so it's this constant like tugging and pulling of ideas. And I've gone down so many wrong paths with Reset. It took me a full year to write it. And this is not full year where between, like hours, it's full year of complete concentration. And I dedicated I treated it as if it was a full-time job. So I rewrote it several times, and at times I didn't think I was going to finish it. But how about you? What's the hardest part?
Well, I was just thinking as you said that, I'm like, Sarina can just answer all my questions. Well, I hadn't thought of that answer.
Have the same, like,
yeah. I hadn't thought of that answer, but I agree with it. The only caveat I would add to it, I have on here a jacket, and a friend, you can't. Oh, it's in a different place. There's a pin on here that says writer. And you can't see it, but I love it. My biggest problem was really just believing in myself and finishing it, because I would work on it. I liked it, but then I thought, this is a waste of time. I have all these other things to work on. And if I could go back in time and talk to my old writer self, I would say, no, just keep at it. This is not a waste of time. And you'll get it done a lot faster if you stop second guessing yourself. But that was definitely my biggest problem.
Yeah.
I had the whole story pretty well. I just kept on second guessing myself.
Yeah, the self-doubt is real, right? I mean, I'm just telling people, like, it's like this career is the worst thing for your self-esteem.
That's true. That's true.
It's terrible. There's the highs are so high and the lows are so low, and you're just kind of like left spinning sometimes. And as an introvert, and I think a lot of writers are, it's exhausting.
It is very exhausting.
Yeah, it's just like it's that kind of constant, like, like all the high. I've been in perpetual state of excitement for the last month, so I'm gonna crash soon.
I realized we skipped the question, but I'm a little unclear on time. We're at 7:30. We're supposed to go for 30 minutes, but we started a little late. Should we do one more question or just switch to questions?
I think we touch upon a lot of the writing, like question, path to publication.
Yeah.
How did you become a writer? I think we kind of touch upon.
We're good. The only one we didn't do is favorite scenes. Maybe we could just do favorite scenes really fast.
Sure. Okay, you want to go first?
Yeah. Okay. The problem with my favorite scene is it's a spoiler, so I can't tell you about it.
Okay, no, don't tell us.
I think I told Sarina about this because she's written the book. But I'll tell you this. What it is I had my book all outlined, like I said, and I got to the point where I thought everything was going to end and tidy wrap up, and a character did something I did not expect. And those characters do that sometimes. Yeah, and I was writing the book and I was surprised. My jaw dropped. And that moment is such a cool creative moment when something you created yourself kind of takes on its own life. It's like the first time a baby takes in your stomach or something. It's like, wow, this character has his own plan and it's not your plan. But that's my favorite scene.
I have a lot of those. My characters are like herding cats sometimes, but they keep me on my toes, which is good. So my favorite scenes, there are actually two scenes, and it's the beginning and the end. I wrote them together. And once you read it, you realize why I wrote them together. And if you don't, come ask me. But I wanted it to be this circle, a circular path in some ways. As you know, my book is inspired in parts by Buddhist philosophy, and so the idea of this circle life, circle path, kind of comes. It's quite a theme in my book. So I hope you do like it. But yeah, those
I want to say I really like your ending, and I feel like for me personally, whether I like a book depends on the ending. And I was reading it and thinking, I don't know how this is going to end. Like, there's some stress there. I couldn't see how it could resolve okay. And I was it has this huge heave.
Yeah, it was tricky. Yeah. I had the ending. I had the beginning and I had the ending. And those were the two moments that I felt grounded the book for me. And so wherever I went on my path within the book, I always knew where I would end up. And that was, it felt, it was comforting to me in some ways. So I knew that, I can go off rail in the middle somewhere, but I will always end up where I'm going to end up. So it's kind of the idea of, karma in a way, cause, effect, things like that.
Love it. I like that too, because I always feel like it's, I don't know, maybe not karma, but kismet that we've met each other. It's so great.
I love that word, kismet. I try to use it whenever I can, and I love using it to describe the way we met.
So I think it's time we open questions.
Yes.
And I'll read the first one, and you can answer, and we can trade off. What inspires you as author? What?
Oh, I was just going to say, should I read the ones that's directed to you? And
yeah.
But then I saw that the first one is to both of us. But
yeah.
Go ahead.
What inspires you as authors to write stories?
You want to go first, or you want me to go first?
I want you to go first.
What inspires me?
Collect your thoughts. And I
can... fear of failure. No, just kidding. No, I've always been a reader. I've always been a reader first for years. It was how and it was my entire childhood. It was so embedded in my head. All of these stories, that I've read that touch my life, and I wanted to kind of one day tell a story that would somehow touch someone's lives, so it's that it's kind of like, it's being given all of my life, all of these wonderful stories, and I just want to kind of like maybe let me try
again, you're like saying what I would say. What I often tell people is, I know, I'm like, well, Sarina, I don't know why you just speak for me, but I'm glad.
Writers, we all have the same soul, I think.
Yeah. But I was a big reader. I love stories. And for me, it's just sort of like I wanted to join the conversation. It's almost like being a child and hearing the adults at the table talking all this time. And those are the books you read. And finally saying, hey, I have something to say too. So.
Yeah, and what a wonderful story you told. So, okay, I'm going to read the second question.
Okay.
It's to you. Hi, Ruth. I'm a bit of a technophobe. Do you relate to your main character, Lucy, as one who wants to be somewhat disconnected? Are you promoting unplugging?
I am somewhere in between. Like I said, I'm all my characters. There's a character in my book who says we've traded privacy for convenience, and I'm okay with that. I think she's right. We've traded privacy for convenience. I'm not okay with it, but sometimes I just do it. I don't have, my daughter wanted to give us like an Echo Dot, and I'm like, not going to have it in my house. I don't want people listening to me, but I do have a cell phone. I do allow cookies. So I'm not there. I'm not saying that what I'm doing is right. or wise.
Mm-hmm.
I sometimes think Lucy's desire to be disconnected is very wise. And that's maybe where we should be. But I also understand why we have traded privacy for convenience, and I understand the appeal of that. So Lucy's right. But it's really, but man, my cell phone is really handy. So.
It is. I don't know how. I can't live without my cell phone. I do everything on it. So, you know, yeah. But
yeah. So I fully understand people who want to do less tech. I think that's great. And I do want my book to make people think about it and think about how much, because in my book, when Lucy is trying to hide, the man who's chasing her has access to the memories of everyone wearing specs. And that's like everyone who has a cell phone now. And so it's hard for her to hide. That's fiction, and that seems really scary, but it's not that different from the world we live in now. If you want to hide, it's pretty hard to hide. There are eyes everywhere.
Yeah, they are. And it's scary, but it's also reality, because, we always trade not just convenience, but safety for privacy. So, yeah. Oh, I have one question. Let's see. I'm trying to kind of pick which one.
I was going to ask the next one because it's for both. Which scene or section brought you the most joy to write?
The most joy to write. Actually, funnily enough, the moments between Eris and her friend Benja. I love the fact that they have this platonic yet intimate relationship with each other. I'm very close with my friends, and I have long friendships, and I can see, I just love those moments when it's just all about you getting the other, and there's not much force in conversation. So those are really fun to write, when you just have easy conversations between characters, and they just kind of come, and their personalities just shine, and the fact that Eris and Benja are very different fundamentally made it really interesting. But they both are delighted in each other, and so, yeah. How about you?
I think my favorite scene is, and I think I can share this because this is second chapter in, is but when Lucy, who's a college freshman, does something embarrassing, and so she just says out loud, "Oh, I wish I could edit my life." And her older sister says, "Oh, I can." And she finds out that her older sister can hack into people's memories. And it's just this hilarious scene because the older sister is so nonchalant that she's been editing her husband's memories.
I thought that was funny too.
Yeah, and she doesn't feel very bad about it. And it's not until pretty recently that I realized, because Molly is based off of, I have a friend who is this very great, she teaches computer science and really good with computers, but she's not what you normally picture. She had I feel like women hackers are always dressed in leather jackets or kind of bohemian, and she's very much stay-at-home mom, Martha Stewart, like does everything.
Yeah, she doesn't come across as like a typical hacker.
No. So she's based off a real person, but it wasn't until recently reading, I'm like, oh my gosh, she's my sister. Because my sister does not hack her husband's memories, but she definitely, I was recently talking to her, and she's like, oh, her son's getting married. And she's like, well, you'll do all the flowers, right? And I'm like, oh, sure. But it's just very much the way Molly's like, okay, you'll do this, right? Kind of, I don't know. I really, I love that reaction between the sisters and when they find out about mind hacking.
Okay. So next question.
Yes. Should I ask this one? I can't remember if I asked last one or you did.
I don't remember either. I'm just kind
Okay.
of like having coffee with a friend, so.
I know. I'll read the next one because no, I'll let you read this one because the next one I'm going to ask you.
Okay. So, which secondary character was the most challenging to write, and which one was the most fun? I kind of touch upon this somewhat, right? But yeah, you want to go?
Which secondary character was the most challenging to write? Whew. I love my secondary characters. Probably the biggest challenge is I wanted to give them more screen time. But which one was the biggest challenge to write? I don't know. So maybe I'll just talk about which one was the most fun. I really love Abuelita. Her name's Esperanza. I think that's only mentioned once because her family calls her Abuelita.
She's fun. Yeah.
And she's one of those characters who kind of came as a whole person, but then one of my friends is like, that is my grandma. And kind of gave me her grandma's life story. And it was pretty much, she was Abuelita for sure. Had that same sort of feeling of like, I had started this character and then someone said, well, let me tell you a little more about her. And I'm like, yep, that's who she is. And yeah, I think she's my favorite character.
That's awesome. Yeah. I think for me, I already kind of mentioned Benja. It's the most fun to write. He is just so out there. He doesn't have any filter. He's very passionate and he doesn't really, he lives outside the box. And that's a lot to be admired from Eris's perspective because she doesn't see herself as any of that. And I really enjoyed writing him. I do. I'm not going to say anymore because I feel like if I go down this road, I'm going to spoil my own book. Yeah. So.
Okay. Next question. Miss Dahlan, your characters and settings have such interesting names. Where do you get them and what is their significance?
So, Eris is named after Aristotle.
Oh.
A philosopher who kind of thought of the idea of tabula rasa. Although, did he even? Yeah, of the idea of the blank slate, and then all the characters' names and the places. A lot of them were inspired by Greek mythology, the 4 moons of Jupiter, I just felt that I wanted this timelessness because one thing about the 4 cities is that even though it is set in a futuristic world, it doesn't really have a culture on its own. It's a different culture, and a lot of its culture is borrowed from the old world because, again, after the last war, which is the event, the catastrophic event that ended most of the world. The cultures, like everything was in the past. And so there's a lot of nostalgia and love for it. And so I felt like that I wanted to borrow from that and the romanticism of those names too. We don't really hear a lot of those names. There are some characters that are kind of based off of names that we've heard before, but kind of slight different. So yeah, and the characters do not have last names, so all of the names are individualized, and so they have to also be quite unique in some ways. Yeah.
I did not catch the Aristotle thing. I was like, I don't. It's great.
It's one of those things where I was like, I left a lot of like little things, and I'm such a nerd, and I love little things, so I just kind of put them in there, and I'm waiting to see if anyone would find all of them.
Well, I do think the details help create the atmosphere. Like even if I didn't realize Aristotle, there is this, like once you say it, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So
yeah. So we probably have time for one more question. There's one that's to both of us.
Okay, is it the one our favorite author?
Oh, Oh, I didn't even see that one.
Which the other?
Favorite author?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
Let's answer that.
Yeah, Ruth and Sarina, who's your favorite author, and name your favorite book of all time?
You go ahead first.
Well, I wrote Sci-Fi, but my favorite author, and I think Sarina knows this because she's in a buddy read with me.
I know.
But I wrote a love story.
Surprise!
And people often ask, like, how did you get from Jane Austen to a YA sci-fi story? And it's a strange road. But mainly, I think what Jane is really good at is characterization. And these characters feel real to you. And I hope that's what I did. That's what I strove for. Also, I like humorous conversations, and people sometimes kind of say they're speaking, and as a reader, you're laughing at them because they don't realize how dumb they sound or how. And I think there's some moments like that in my book as well.
Yeah.
So that's
I like the humor in your book, definitely.
Yeah. So, but I think, well, let's do your author and then favorite book. So.
Oh, no. You go ahead. Do your favorite book.
Favorite author's Jane Austen. Favorite book is Wives and Daughters by Elizabeth Gaskell. So not
I haven't read that one.
Yeah, it's a great one, but not very much like my book either. But I will say this, there's a Molly in that book and there's a Molly in my book. So there you go.
Ah!
But one of the things I really like in that book is, well, there's many things, but it has humor, it has pathos, it has romance, it also has nature writing. That's another thing we have in common. We both did a little bit of nature writing. I really love the outdoors. And
I love that too, yeah.
And so that's part of it.
I love settings. Yeah,
Yes.
I really enjoy writing settings. A lot of I just feel like it really grounds a story, and it really kind of leads the readers to kind of really put themselves in the situation.
Yeah,
so,
and I would say both of our books, settings really important, and in your book, it's almost in my book, but I think you even do it that setting's almost a character.
Yes, the setting, the four cities is absolutely, and I love that you said that because I see the four cities as a character.
I love it.
Yeah. And while, someone's always asked me, it's like, is Reset a standalone or is it part of a series? And I always says, I wrote it as a standalone. However, I don't think I'm done with the story about the four cities because I see it as its own character, and so there will be more. I don't know if I can call it a series because the new book that I'm working on will not have the same characters, at least the same main characters. So, okay, this question's really hard for me to answer.
It is. I've had a whole year to
favorite. Yeah, my favorite book. So I'll start with my favorite book is 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. And I
said, which is a little bit speculative.
It's magical realism. There's speculative fiction in there, but what I love the most about his writing style, it's how lyrical it is, and how he writes atmosphere really well. It's almost like his writing just makes a setting thick with atmosphere, and I love the poetry of it. And the 100 Years of Solitude, when I read that, it was one that I was like, man, I want to be a writer. It's amazing. And my book does reference his other work, which is Love in a Time of Cholera. And I see a parallel between that book and the story of the characters in that book and the characters in my book. And if you haven't read Love in a Time of Cholera, it's also another beautifully written work of his. My favorite author, I think it's probably Margaret Atwood.
Oh yeah,
She is
that makes sense. Yeah.
smart. Oh my God, that woman! Have you ever watched her interviews? She is like, she is so intelligent. I would love to just like look at her, and I mean, she doesn't need to talk to me or anything because I would be way too afraid. but I would just love to watch her, and yeah, she did this master class, and I watched the entire thing like 3 times because I'm just kind of like, please give me your knowledge. But yeah, super super smart woman. Love that.
And I see all those influences in your book for sure.
Thank you. It's those things you can't really escape from, all of the things bleeding into your work.
And I know you guys said that was the last question, so I am popping back on because I have a question of my own. And Sarina, you touched on this just a little bit, but maybe you can elaborate more, maybe not. But as many of us know, the book we're celebrating and talking about today is not the book that the author is working on or planning to release next. So I was wondering if either one of you can tell us a little bit more about what you are working on. There have been a little bit of hints dropped here and there, but if there's anything more that you can share, and also where people can follow you, either social media or a newsletter, but just where they can stay up to date on the works that you have coming out.
Sure. Ruth, would you like to go first?
Sure. I am almost this close to being finished with the sequel to Deleted. Deleted it ends fine. It could be a standalone book, but there's a sequel, and it's almost done. And to give you a hint, in Deleted, thoughts are being taken away. In the next book, maybe thoughts are being added.
Ooh, interesting.
And to find me, as Constance mentioned in the beginning, Instagram is the best place to find me. In fact, I think Sarina emailed me and then reached out to me on Instagram and heard from me faster. I'm on Facebook and Twitter, but Instagram is my home. I'm very comfortable there. So I'm at literally Ruth Mitchell. It's literally .ruth.mitchell. And that's where, and from there you can go to my bio and find links to all my other stuff and my newsletter if you want to sign up, which you should do. But
so I, as I mentioned, am working on a book that is a prequel to Reset. I think I can say that. It's a prequel to Reset. However, it is meant to be read after Reset. And it is a story about the 2 characters that you will meet briefly in Reset, and they are the people who are responsible for building this place. If Reset is a story about 2 people coming together, this new book is about a story about 2 people becoming or coming apart under the weight of the world. So very difficult to write because in Reset, it's 200 years into the future. The people are already living this life. They've already bought into the culture and, the way of life. Whereas in this book, it's about building a new way of life after a catastrophe as huge as the last war that wiped out most everyone that the survivors knew. So I hope to kind of have that ready sometime in the summer. And then of course it goes through that entire process of publication, which takes forever. So I don't know when you're gonna see me again. But you can follow me. Like Ruth, I am on Instagram mostly under Sarina.Dahlan. And I'm also on Facebook, but not really. And Twitter scarce. you know, me. Because I feel like you have to be so witty, and I just can't be that witty in 150 characters. It's just,
And you can't.
it's just not right. I'm offended by the format.
I'm just bad at Twitter, so I stay off of it and do myself and the internet a service by not going on it. But oh my gosh,
So I don't.
150 words is not a lot, especially if you are someone who has a proclivity to ramble or likes like fear things, which is the category.
Yeah, and it's actually 150 characters, which is even worse.
Which is like the thing. You can't use fun words then unless. Anyways, it could go on a long time about Twitter, but both of the books that you are working on sound amazing, and it's exciting too that while they get some closure from Deleted and Reset, that in these next books they also get to revisit the world for all of our readers. And oh my gosh, I'm like, I want to know what happens already. That's the beautiful thing about asking what you're working on, and then also the like reader frustration part of like, wait, no, I would like it now, please. But thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Thank you for all of the great questions.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Yep. And
I can't see you all, but
but a virtual big hug to everyone for joining us. And don't forget that if you would like to purchase Reset or Deleted, you can get a personalized and signed copy at the purchase book button down below. And make sure you go follow Ruth as well as Sarina so you can stay in touch and see what they have going on. And we will see you all at the next event. Thank you for joining us. Thank you so much, Sarina. Thank you, Ruth. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you.
Lovely.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you for being here.
Bye.
Bye.